everybody to the perimenopausal athletes and beyond. This masterclass is focused on hearing from experts on a wide range of topics that impact athletes, and that's female physiology and nutrition and training and recovery, so that you can be in your best health and perform in both life and in your sport. And we are so lucky today to have Amanda Thebe. And my goodness, if there's one thing, if you only have 2 minutes to listen, I hope you can listen to the whole thing, but buy the book. Menopocalypse. I have to like, there it
Menopocalypse. Yeah, it's phonetic.
Menopocalypse. It is brilliant. So, but I'm going to tell you why it's so brilliant in a little bit, but I first just want to introduce you to this amazing woman. She is a founder and owner of Fit and Chips, which is you can go fitandchips.com and check out some of the amazing things that she does. She's been in the industry of fitness for over 20 years. She has been nominated, or I don't know if it's a nomination, but it's like the over 40 guru to watch, which is super fun.
Should be over 50 now. We
over
should call
50.
It
I know, we've got to update some of that. There you go.
Gosh.
And proud of it is not just something, it's perfect. Featured in forums such as, Shape and Prevention, Healthline, Global News, so many more now, especially with the launch of her book. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is that she's also a contributor to Girls Gone Strong, which is a phenomenal coaching program that I highly recommend for any coach that wants to work with women. Go to Girls Gone Strong. Just such a powerful, powerful training course there. And you would have some of the contributions from Amanda there. I can keep on listing all the qualifications for what she does in fitness, but there's one other thing that I want to say is that Amanda is a community builder. And she is not only just building a community around her and through her Facebook group, Menopause Gone Hard, Go Hard.
Menopausing so hard, yes.
Menopausing so hard.
Yeah.
But so that's one of the communities, but I do know that she's really building a lot of interest and excitement, and we can do this atmosphere around her. So if you want to be inspired, then just start following Amanda and being on her team, because then we can just keep on going. So congratulations on your book. And
thank you.
I am going to let you speak in a second, but I just wanted to tell you why the book is so good and what I was able to take from it. And I've read a lot of books on perimenopause and on menopause. First of all, you translate the science and you make it into actionable habits. So if you have, so to all the women that are listening, or to coaches that are trying to support women, if you want to know with the range of symptoms or experiences there are, you can know that you read this book and you get bits out of it. So that's one reason. The second thing is that Amanda has an authenticity that is so bloody sexy and awesome and raw, and she lets you into her world, and that just makes you feel like you can be there as well. And thirdly, you cover it all. You really do. So, I say we have experts on all these pieces. And if you want to have a really good grounding and how to move forward, if you're having any struggles of how to perform your best, start here. Start with Amanda's book, because you'll really feel like you can get going. So am I missing anything that you really want to say? This is also part of your life. I know you have a family. We could say that too.
No, honestly, I think I'm amazing. After listening to what you've just said about me, I'm like, she's not bad. No, I think, thank you. That was a nice introduction. And just to add to the last part of it, the whole point of me writing the book was because I'm going into I'm 50 now. I'm postmenopausal. I was in my early 40s when I was in perimenopause, and I struggled to find information. It just was so frustrating for me. I didn't get my questions answered, and everything I did read was so overwhelming that I just couldn't absorb it, and then I couldn't take action from it. So I knew I needed to write a book that was like literally in real speak, you know, like I'm talking to you, and that's where the realness and my oversharing comes in, because I literally am an oversharer. Yeah.
Well, I don't think you are actually. So I wouldn't take that one on, because it's in every, like, we all have different pieces. Like, we might not. And so Amanda goes into it all. She goes into like what it was like to have depression. She goes into understanding anxiety. She goes into thinking about how do we eat and fuel ourselves. And thanks to precision nutrition for, contributing to your knowledge in that. And so you go into all those things, but Pete, this is what's exciting, is that somebody can find something in it for them. Like, there's so many little nuggets on so many different levels within each of the pieces that I truly believe, like,
So I'm a huge fan of behavioral change. I think behavioral change is where we need to make the most impact in our lives. We understand from the research that when we start changing these small habits and we sort of like commit to them and we do them over and over again, we'll see long lasting change. And so that's why there's the little call outs and actionable points, because I want people to go through, women, men, because I think men should read the book too, but women to go through the book and think, oh yeah, that's actually what I need to do right now. And then just get stuck into that habit and just work on that. Don't like read the whole book and go, I have to change everything. No, I want you to keep going back and just keep working on the areas where you feel like you can make progress.
And I think what you do within it is, like, you help people understand that it is that little piece, and that's where we can start to make the gains.
Exactly.
So I want to get into and ask you some really specific questions. So one of the things, and I'm going to quote you from your book, you say, "It's my aim to get you to move away from anything in your life that does not represent how you feel or how you value yourself and your life." So if you are, so what I want to like capture in that is, and what is really unique in your book, and very specific to your book, because I haven't read it in another one, is, and this was with the help of your co-author, Alison McCall, who you talk about shift happens. That was, in brackets, one of the chapters that you did. And you said to yourself, I needed a reminder to myself that I had to be more than how I was feeling, and that I knew I could be fighting strong again. And you get into your values to take stock and be present. And what I would like to hear from you on is, what was that like? Talk about the process of how did you come to, because nobody talks about values when we talk about perimenopause and menopause, but you did. And I wanted to think about tell me about that process and what it meant to you as an athlete as well.
So I think the reason why I wrote that chapter, I have 4 hacks that I talk about: nutrition, movement, and stress management. And this one is like how to think. And the reason I wanted to write that and include it is because I feel in the conversation about perimenopause and menopause, that's the missing piece of the puzzle that we don't focus in on. And what we do know about perimenopause and menopause is that we see women lose themselves. They become invisible. We hear that word all the time. We feel invisible. Our body starts to change and we don't recognize it. And that impacts our self-worth, our self-esteem. We don't have the confidence that we previously had. These are common things that I hear women say. Mm-hmm. And I felt them too. Like, I went from being a super confident, extroverted person to really thinking, is this my life now? Am I just a boring shit? Do I literally have nothing to add and nothing to contribute anymore? Right. I even felt as though my voice wasn't being heard. I was always like opinionated. I always will be. But I felt like people were dismissing what I was saying without like regard for me. And it just was a demoralizing place to be. Yeah. So I worked with Alison McCall, who is a good friend of mine and also a psychologist. And I asked her, I said, what is it about women, not just through perimenopause, that we have all these negative connotations about us, and we fail to see our worth. And we tie so much of our worth to how we look, how much we wear, and all of those things, how much somebody thinks I'm good looking or whatever. Like we've got these superficial ideas of what our values are. And so this is where this chapter came from. And she and I worked together on this, and understanding what your values are isn't something I've just made up. This is a psychological tool that you can do yourself. There's like an online questionnaire you can do. And understanding what your values are actually your reasons. They're not goals, but it's like why you want to do the things you want to do. And so for me, it was all about like continuing to show empathy and kindness. That was one of my values. Another one is that my values were always my family. Family came first every time. And so, and then after that, it was my health. My health was one of my values. And then right down the bottom was my business goals, which was interesting for me because I do want to be successful in what I do, but it really wasn't important in the structure of things. And so what that actually helped me do was make me like have some introspection and say, okay, so you're going to write a book. So we'll use that as an example. Why do you want to do that? Well, it's because I have understanding, empathy, and kindness. And this information is super important and it's helpful. It also helps support my family because they now understand what I'm going through. And they're also very proud of me because I've wrote a book, and it sort of adds value to the family dynamic. And then it boosts my business as well, all of those things. But it made the decision process so much easier to do, instead of saying, oh, well, shall I support this brand with an affiliate, or should I like go on this diet, like this super strict diet, so that I get super skinny and then I'm a worthy person. And that's actually not where my mind went, but I know that's where a lot of women's minds go. And so it's just a really great way to have focused vision, to look forward and to know the path you're taking. And it allows you to say no to opportunities that don't suit you. It allows you to get rid of toxic behaviors that are around you and people. And then it sort of like adds value to your life. Like, so your values will add value to your life.
Yeah. Well, and I think in particular, so it's all that. And what is interesting for athletes as we, dream about start lines again, like, oh, please, can we have some start lines again?
Yes.
How do we make those decisions on what we want to do? So if you're an endurance athlete, how long do you want to go? Or if you are a rock climber, how challenging do you want it to be? Or if you are like whatever, fill in the blanks. And so coming to those values as a decision-making tool is so powerful. And I thank you for that. Because
it also works in alignment with something called strengths. And I talk about that in the chapter 2, like identifying what your strengths are. And your strengths aren't just like our physical goals, like our how big our guns are, but it's more that, you understand your own personality. The strengths help identify what makes you the person you are. So when you know why you're doing something because of your values, and you know what you're in yourself, how you view yourself can change when you understand your strengths.
Yeah.
Then when it comes to like your athletic performance or your business decisions, or like even your nutritional choices or your life partner, all of those decisions become so much easier because you've got a clear path ahead of you.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of pressure off you, and it sort of like envelopes you in a sense of calm. It's a really useful tool to work towards.
Yeah, very cool. I just love that you brought that in, because you don't hear that from other books, and I just thank you for that.
Thank you.
The other, I mean, in another angle of that, like one challenge that I hear from a lot of the athletes that I work with and the women, is that we have a really hard time, especially the type of women that is listening to this podcast. Like we're go-getters. We want to do stuff. And, if we come up to a challenge, we're just going to shut that voice down. It doesn't matter. We're just going to shut down and stay positive and just, barrel through. Yeah. But you talk in your book about how we need to start to listen in, create that shift. And I just wanted to hear from you some of the ways like that you have been able to do that, or, you had, in Dominican Republic, you had some, really up against the wall, kind of had to listen to where you were at. And what could you say to women around that?
So those instances all came because of the symptomatic side of perimenopause for me. So I need to sort of like outline that, because prior to that, I was the like, I'm going to push through, you know, I'm like, probably like most people watching this, I'm an A-type personality. I always think I'm capable of more. And that sense of confidence was definitely diminished through perimenopause. But then I had like the physical symptoms with it as well. And the psychological and neurological symptoms, like we know the symptoms of perimenopause impact the whole body, all of the systems in the body. I struggled with really bad depression, and I didn't struggle very much with anxiety, but when I had panic attacks, they were like, I literally couldn't believe what was happening. And that instance in the Dominican Republic, I just felt like, I mean, it's really stupid. And usually anxiety and panic attacks happen from something small and we snowball them out of control. And this was, we went away on a holiday, and I hated it because I'm an adventurer, and I was stuck in this all-inclusive resort, and it was like prison for me. And people were humping in the pool and getting drunk, and I was just like, I want to die. I hate it here. And I actually had a panic attack. I wasn't able to breathe. I was crying uncontrollably. And I just, like, my family were like, is she having a heart attack? Is something going on? And I was like, it was awful. It was like an out of body experience. And so I did deep breathing and tried to calm down. And actually, in fact, I ended up just going for like a massive run. I don't know why, but that just seemed to just get it out of my system, which is usually not what helps with anxiety. I mean, exercise does help, but usually the breathing works. And so I realized then that like my body is way smarter than me, and it's trying to tell me something, and I need to be a little bit more respectful and tune into what's happening. And one of the ways that was really highlighted to me through the whole perimenopause phase, and somewhat still in menopause, but to a lesser degree, is chronic fatigue. We know estrogen is intrinsically linked to our energy, and that when we start losing estrogen and it fluctuates in that really crazy roller coaster type manner, chronic fatigue is just like one of those symptoms that women just really struggle with. We can't sleep it off. We can't it's like in our bones. It's awful. And so that was one of the like pausing moments for me, where I actually did try to like, you know, go hard or go home. And it was the worst thing for my body. I would go for like a really hard run, and it would take me 4 or 5 days to recover. Right. And so I sort of had to sort of like ask myself every day, okay, you're due to do a strength training session today, and it's going to take about 45 minutes. How do you feel? Do you feel like you can do it? And if I was on like about a 4 out of 10, I would go, you know what, I'm just going to do like 15, 20 minutes. And I started doing fitness snacking so that I got something in rather than nothing. And then on the days when my energy was good, I just used that energy and made the most of it. But it was a really important lesson to me to, one, include rest days, actually let my body rejuvenate and recover. And two, work with my energy level like it was, and not try push too hard, because it was detrimental. And it is. It's almost like that catabolic nature of like, especially like endurance sports, it's harder to recover from. And so we need to sort of like work with our body and its energy levels.
So was it when you like realized that you had to actually start listening to your body, did you deliberately kind of do a check-in in the morning, or like how did that, like it was deliberate? Was it through journaling, or like how did you kind of go, all right?
Oh, I'm like the world's, I'm totally like pen and paper, old school boomer, you know. I write everything down. I have little acronyms for everything, and I do a 10 out of 10 every day. Like when I realized I was going through perimenopause, I needed to try and find some type of a pattern. I realized there was no pattern. My periods were all over the place. There was no like cyclical pattern I could work to, like you can in that female physiology through, you know, regular menstrual periods. And so I had to use something. So I took check of my symptoms, which were quite similar the whole way through, which were chronic migraines, which really were very hard to exercise through. My depression was something that was hard to work through, but it was actually the exercise benefited it, of course. But the energy level was something I did. And I had like a scale out of 10. If it was below 2, I just went for a walk. If it was between 8 and 10, I did a good workout. Like I worked within those boundaries. And it worked. Like it worked for me. And it was just a way of just sort of like saying, hey buddy, what can we do today? And I had to let go of that structure that I love. I really love lists. I love timetables. I love programs. I love progressive overload in my strength training. And I was realizing that like if I did a Monday session and I went to do the Wednesday and I couldn't finish it, I felt like such a failure, and I didn't want to feel like a failure. So that's why I became more flexible with my workouts. I just use the time more effectively, and let things go. Workout fitness snacking, and I also considered those sessions small wins. I didn't consider them failures when I didn't do as much. I considered them a win, so that psychologically I still felt like on top of things, if that makes sense. And it really makes a difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's really neat, because I think that we have this, from what we used to do, which is a big problem. And you talk about that too, is like, who do we used to be? Well, it's not relevant. With all that we're going through in perimenopause and beyond, like it has to be right now, and to really take in center, what can I feel good about what I did? And it all is just like how you said, like it all adds up little bit by little bit. One action will add into another action, and
it's all about the behaviors that we were talking about. Like, so I got in I'm in a good habit with exercise because I've always done it, and I didn't want to lose that. So I just did something. Yeah. And if I couldn't do anything, if it literally was a day where I didn't have the energy, I had a bad migraine, or I was just exhausted, I made myself go out for a walk, even if I hated every minute of it, because I knew at the end of it, I would feel a whole ton better.
A little bit better. Yeah. Really neat, really neat. So so you mentioned this, and I mean, this is in your like massive amount of experiences as a strength trainer. And yes, as you spoke about just briefly, is that there is this amazing chapter for anybody who is nervous about starting strength at all, again, by Amanda's book. And you can have 3 great programs, like at least to just, start. It can be for somebody who has experience, or somebody that is beginning. And yes, you can do it even at home. So, I mean, you need to have a little bit of weight, but you can do that. So what I want to ask about there is, how can you tie in some of this idea of how, if you are an endurance athlete and you're building in strength, can you just talk a little bit about why that strength piece is just so absolutely vital?
So I will talk about why I think I know it's important, but I have to put a caveat down. I don't consider myself an endurance athlete. I mean, I do run. I run a couple of times a week, but I'm like a 10K runner, and I do a bit of swimming. But I primarily prioritize strength training, and there are so many benefits to it. But if we just list a couple of them that we know matter to endurance athletes. One, sarcopenia, right? We know that's a big impact on our bodies, mainly through aging and being sedentary. See, clearly the sedentary part doesn't play a big impact, but we also do know that the type of like endurance sports like running and cycling don't create a big enough stimulus on the body to actually maintain and build lean body mass. And so to do that, you need to do resistance training. And so if you're doing, and also the whole idea of like resistance training is it bulletproofs your body. We need to know that we're going to be injury free. We need to know if we do get injured that we rebound quicker, and strength training is the tool to make that happen. There's nothing worse than being an endurance athlete and then having an injury and just feeling completely lost, feeling like all of the progress you've made will be lost. Because another part of the strength training programs that I do, they're based around like a metabolic circuit. So you're out of breath at the end of it. You're actually working in an anaerobic threshold, which obviously has a beneficial impact on any endurance sports anyway. What we do know through menopause is that when we lose estrogen, when it starts to decline down to these really low thresholds, when you're in post-menopause, you're open to be a candidate for osteoporosis. 1 in 2 women after menopause will break a bone. We know the impact of, like, there's even high death rates because of breaking a hip. 40,000 women a year die in the US because of breaking a hip. It's like these crazy numbers. I was like, what? That's insane. Well, and estrogen plays a big role in that because it helps form, you know, the bone strength. And the only other way to really sort of do that outside of estrogen is strength training. The bone and the muscle pulling apart from one another helps promote bone growth. So we obviously want to sort of like promote that. And as just like an added benefit, it can help with some of the symptoms of menopause. So it can help with some vasomotor symptoms, which are your night sweat, hot flashes, cold flushes, anxiety and depression. So it's like all around the good guy in exercise. It's like everything, right? Yeah. And I've got a complete bias to it all, but I feel like my bias is like justified because there are so many ways you can introduce it. And I actually, well, the research shows us even 3 times a week, like a small amount is more beneficial than not doing any at all. Yeah. So I wrote these programs like for an entry level into strength training, but for those who are more seasoned athletes, I show you how to pimp it up, right? So that's what I call it. I say pimp it up.
She totally does. Yeah, she totally does. So you know how to pimp it up. Yeah, that's what I just love about, I mean, everything that is in the book, it's not your bias. It is actually founded on science. So that is something to, you know, just hold on to. But I love it that it also can be short. And it goes right back to the point that you made earlier that, you know, 15 minutes can actually be valuable if that's all you're able to do that day. But, you know, your workouts are about 30 minutes and it doesn't have to be a slog. And that's what I was excited about, you know, reading and making sure that that's shared to the listeners here, that it's so accessible. Yeah. So before we run out of time, I mean, I could just keep going, and I honestly, I would want to, but I'm going to have to say to everybody, read the book. Before I ask you my 3 questions, is there anything else that you really wanted to make sure that the listeners, you know about you or about what you're up to?
You know, like I talk about menopause all the time, but it's not just what I'm all about. I do love to talk about women's health and exercise and nutrition and stress management, and just like really advocating for this anti-ageist this anti-ageist diet culture that we exist in. I'm very outspoken about it, and so I would just like say to women, like, just really start like believing in yourself a little bit more. Stop looking at these unrealistic goals out there. Get real solid education like these seminars, and then just work towards like being the best you can be.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah. And there might just be another book that comes into your realm, I think there, or we can hope anyway. Fingers crossed. 3 questions. Okay. Are you ready?
I am. I think so.
Give us 1 moment of courage.
Okay. I overcame my fear of the water. Well, it wasn't the fear of the water, fear of swimming this year. And I learned to swim age 50, like proper swimming, like you see on the telly, up and down laps. No. So I went from doing 1 lap and I now swim for like an hour every time.
I love that. Okay. So it's possible for everyone.
Learn a new skill. Yeah.
It totally is. Learning a new skill. Tell us 1 thing that you are grateful for right now.
Yeah, my health. It's always my health. I was a COVID long hauler. Like I had 17 weeks of recovering from COVID. I was very concerned and worried about my health at that stage. And I just did everything I could in my power to feel good again. And I'm back and I don't take it for granted.
Oh, I am sorry to hear that. And I am glad that we're back.
Yeah.
All right. And the final question is, what do you say? What is 1 thing that you would say to your younger self that was going through perimenopause or approaching menopause, or, you know, like what would you say? What's that 1 thing?
Yeah, knowledge all the time, right? So I really struggle to find information, get detailed knowledge so that you can advocate for yourself, because it's hard out there to get help. So you need to, you know, have all the information and then go out there guns a-blazing. It's a grassroots. I feel like this is a grassroots movement, and this is the generation to change the conversation about menopause. And I think it's happening, but it starts with every single person watching this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for the energy that you put into the book. I know it's no small feat. For giving it to us. It's a gift. And yeah, and thank you for giving us your time here in this interview. So take care and buy the book. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.